Stay connected and stay hot with VIT Chennai. Feel the rhythm.
तुम सुनो सबको सुनाओ वॉइस इट वीआईटी रिदम तो फील करो मेरे भाई
வாய்ஸ் இட் விஐடி சென்னை கூட சேர்ந்து சிரிங்க சிந்திங்க கவலைகளை மறந்து ரிதம்ம ஃபீல் பண்ணுங்க
వింటూనే ఉండండి వినిపించే వినోదం వాయిస్ ఇట్ ఫ్రమ్ విఐటి చెన్నై ఫీల్ ద రిథమ్
ഇപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ കേട്ടുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത് വോയിസ് VIT Chennai. Feel the rhythm. കാതോർക്കൂ മനസ്സിൽ നിറയ്ക്കൂ.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your host RJ Aryan. Today I proudly welcome you all to the second episode of Crackdown, exclusively on Voice It, the official radio club of VIT Chennai. Today we'll take some stories of people stuck in emergency lockdowns unwillingly. These lockdowns are unlike the ones we are currently facing right now in quarantine. So let's just dive right into the first story. Story 1. I was 16 in my junior year of high school. I had 9 periods in the school day. 5th period was lunch and straight from there was my astronomy class. My class was actually held in one of the 2 basement rooms of the school. My high school was big. There were 3 floors and even that wasn't enough to accommodate all of the classes offered. So the school built 2 classrooms in the basement. It was honestly kind of creepy down there when nobody else was around. It earlier used to be a janitorial area. However, it was remodeled to better resemble a typical hallway. The only thing there was no intercoms or loudspeakers down in the basement. And at that time, for that reason, no classes were held down there for the first period. Everyone referred to this little section of the basement as the chamber, and everyone always tried to get classes down there just because it was air conditioned. The classes were typically easier, plus it had its own loo. Down there, we had a quiz that day. Astronomy quiz. I was actually the first one done because I found the class rather easy. I finished my quiz and I texted my friend who was in the other basement classroom to meet me in the bathroom. I was bored. He told me, okay, I'll meet you. I walked out of the classroom and down the small hallway to the bathroom on my left. A few seconds later, the door opened and my friend JJ entered the bathroom. Me and JJ were joking around for a while when JJ checked his phone and someone texted him saying the school was going on lockdown. We both looked at each other with the same grins. Neither of our teachers saw us leave the classrooms. That meant we had free range of the school while it was on lockdown. We agreed to sneak upstairs and look around the hallways just for the hell of it. The worst that could happen is that we have to explain that we couldn't hear the announcement because we were in the chamber. Upon opening the basement door, we were surprised to find that all of the lights had been turned off, so the hallways were pretty much pitch black. Aside from the light pouring in from the doors in the lobby, this was legitimately dark because there was nobody left in the hallways during the lockdowns. We didn't even know if we were comfortable walking around now, since none of the guidance lights had even turned on. JJ stepped out a little further into the hallway and I followed suit, sheepishly. JJ then looked down the hall and said, "Who's that?" I looked, and emerging from the darkness was a man. At first, we couldn't tell if he was a teacher or not, but as he got closer, we realized the guy wasn't dressed like any staff at all. He was dressed like a bum. "Alright, let's go," I told JJ as we hurried back down to the basement. Surely, whoever he was saw both of our classrooms. Both of our classrooms had their doors shut and the lights off. So we avoided trying to make a scene. We decided to dash and hide in the bathroom. I cut the lights first thing, and then we both went to hide into the corner stall as there was complete silence. No ventilation, no heaters, just plain silence. The sound of me and JJ breathing and the occasional drip from the sink was the only sound available. The bathroom door suddenly burst open. Light from the hallway poured into the bathroom. For a brief moment, the door shut and the bathroom was once again pitch black. Me and JJ tried our best to control our breathing, but the room was so silent that we could hear him walking over to our side of the bathroom. The person stopped and started breathing really heavily, as if they were out of breath, and me and JJ were both scared to death. JJ did something completely stupid. He whispered in my ear, "You have to crawl out of the other stalls." The room was so silent, however, that even JJ's whisper could be heard from across the room. The heavy breathing suddenly stopped, and the person tried pressing the stall door. And that's when I whispered, "Go, go." We both crawled under the sidewall to the next stall, over and over to the next stall, and then finally out of the side of the bathroom. The person was now full on banging on the stall door. Me and JJ hopped up on the floor and opened the door as the light filled the room. We saw the guy from upstairs. From the corner, we pounded the door. JJ's class teacher let us in within seconds. JJ explained everything as the teacher locked the door, mentioning a gun. JJ mentioned a gun sticking out of the man's pocket. I was shocked to hear this because I didn't even see a gun when I was panicking. The adrenaline was bursting through me. My vein in my forehead was popping. Usually, a bunch of high school students would be laughing at two students causing a scene like this, but I noticed there was a warm seriousness over there. The corner looked concerned. As a sudden bang, the door made everyone jump, and a couple of the girls squealed out of fear. JJ and the teacher could see the man standing at the door looking through the window, while trying the no-no. After a few bangs on the door, out of what seemed to be anger, he turned and walked down the hallway back to the stairs. I don't remember how much longer the lockdown went on, but it was probably over an hour where we sat in silence in that room. The teacher occasionally asked us questions in a very concerned tone, shaking her head after everything we could tell him about the assailant. Eventually, somebody from upstairs called the teacher, and we were instructed to make a single file, walk up the stairs right out of the building, where we would be greeted by cops. Me and JJ did the best we could at describing the assailant to the cops and to the dean. The cops patted me on the back and we were sent off to go home. After this incident, the school installed cameras everywhere and ramped up the security budget. This incident never got the media attention it so honestly deserved. So, we never found out if the police caught the guy. I'm convinced that that man had no other intentions but to kill us, then and there in that shady bathroom stall. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be taking a short break here now, and you should stay tuned to Voice It if you want to listen to the next story. Thank you very much.
Hey there. Yeah, you, the one listening to this. Do you listen to conversations and go like, that is so cliche? Or do you just think about what most people discuss or regard as fact as just, propaganda? Well, if that's you, then you should definitely join me, RJ Aryan, on my show, The Devil's Advocate, where we talk about things the way they actually are, or rather, the other side of the conversation, the dark side of the moon, if you will. Yeah, tune in every Monday at 6 p.m. See you there. Also, try and figure out why the show is on a Monday. Bye-bye.
Story 2. I'm a retired New Jersey police officer. Throughout my 20 years in the force, the most disturbing call I ever received was for a school lockdown happening at a nearby middle school, of which I leave out the name for legal reasons. It happened on a stormy, dark day. My car number was called on the radio to respond immediately to a lockdown where a suspicious-looking man was seen stepping out from a white van parked behind the school. He was walking into the back door right next to the boys' locker room. I pulled up to the back parking lot of the school right in front of the white van. Nobody was inside the van, and all of the doors and trunk were locked. I opened the red back door that entered into the gym hallway right by the boys' locker room. The main lights had been turned off, so the whole inside of the school was dark. I unholstered my flashlight from my belt and used it to navigate the halls. I made it somehow to the lobby of the school, where a woman emerged shrieking from the front office. Well, I told her to calm down. Then she told me to check the boys' locker room, but to be careful because the person might be armed. I called for backup on my radio, and after a while, a short backup was already on the way. I made it back to the hallway and I entered from where I found the boys' locker room. Right next to the exit, I pushed the door open, but I treaded very quietly. There was no windows in the room, therefore there was no light. Only light provided was my flashlight. There was a white noise in the room, some kind of buzz or some squeaks due to rats on the ceiling. But even over that, I was hearing a faint scratching type of noise or little dings on the locker doors from the other side. I was supposed to make my presence as a police officer known, but honestly, I was just too scared. The tension in the room was insane. I held my flashlight in one hand and my gun in the other. As I snuck to the other side of the locker room, it seemed like wherever I was in the room, the dings and thuds would be coming from the other side. Like the sound, it was following me. I was standing in the corner of the locker room, right by the door to the bathroom, when the sound of someone slamming a locker door from another room made me jump out of my skin. A chill went down my spine as I went in the direction where I heard the slam, to find out that it was from the boys' football team locker room. There was no door separating the two locker rooms. The lockers in there was also thrice the size. I finally had the nerve to make my presence known by shouting, "Police!" After my shouting, a kid started shrieking, "Help! Help!" from somewhere in the room. Even though he was trying to shriek, it was very muffled, though the kid pounded on the locker room door on the other side. I found out that the boy was trapped inside of locker. I felt sick in my stomach. I told them I'll be right back once I called back up. The white van, as it were, was gone. My biggest mistake was not getting the plate number the first thing I could do. So I phoned my friends, told them to be on the lookout for a suspicious white van. I ran back into the school and instructed the staff in the front office to end the school day and send somebody with the key to the locker room to help me to get the boy out of the locker. The boy was held by the man with a knife on his back. As I speculated, the man was trying quietly to get the 12-year-old boy into his van. The boy was bleeding on his arm from the man cutting him while resisting his attack. The man's van was spotted a week later in a 7-Eleven parking lot, where he was arrested after being properly identified. It turned out he was a serial molester. God forbid that kid could have gotten attacked that day. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now be taking a short break. Please stay tuned to us if you want to listen to the third story in this short series.
Guys, I hope you're having a great day. You're listening to What's in a Job with me, Bhargavi, where we talk about jobs. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most amazing jobs out there, zookeeping. I think for most kids and some adults, zookeeping is an absolute dream job, and why wouldn't it be, right? You get to spend all of your time interacting with the cutest animals, like animals most people could only dream of meeting. But it's not all hunky-dory, and today we're going to talk about some facts you might not have known about it. Some adorable, some smelly, and some really gross facts. So fact 1, not every zoo animal is on display, right? Most people seem to think that a zoo will have every animal in their collection out on display, but that's rarely the case. Especially in breeding zoos, keepers will often have as many of the youngest animals behind closed doors as possible so they can be properly and privately cared for. Other animals may be like adjusting to a new environment or recovering from illnesses, which are pretty gross to look at, so they keep them as far away from the public eye as possible. And some others are intentionally kept hidden in order to be brought out for special occasions and shows and events so that the zoo can raise more money, because zookeepers need to be paid and animals need food. And the second fact, and this is honestly a little sad, is that zoos can drive animals crazy. I mean, zoos continue to work really hard to get better and better at caring for their animals. And accredited zoos today are a far cry from the caged menageries that they used to be. But even the best zoos are keeping their creatures in spaces that are much smaller than what the creatures would inhabit in the wild. Right? And this can have a serious effect on their mental health. Zoochosis is a term for zoo animals that display unnatural and unfortunate behaviors, including over-grooming, eating things they shouldn't, vomiting, and stuff like that. So the next time you see a video of an animal doing something weird or cute, like maybe a monkey obsessively picking lice, it may actually be that the animal is driven mad by the very small enclosure. To prevent this, zookeepers do a lot of stuff. One of the most interesting part of that is that there are predator animals, right? These animals are meant to be hunters in the wild, and so do zookeepers. They do their best to make feeding time as interesting as possible. For some animals, this means feeding on whole carcasses, as in like animal dead bodies, instead of pre-made food, which is definitely not what you want your 5-year-old seeing on zoo day. But some zookeepers even create like fake cardboard versions of animals so that the predators can hunt and stalk and pounce and not just eat. This again is not very fun for us to see because it can be a little scary and like really ruin the whole Madagascar trope going on. But it does keep the animals happy, so like, it's fine. And zookeeping is one of the most competitive jobs, right? Most zookeepers will have no problem telling you that this is far from an easy job. In fact, San Diego has a zoo whose HR department receives hundreds of applications for a job that opens up, like any job that opens up. So getting into this field usually takes multiple degrees in a related subject and plenty of volunteer hours. This shouldn't discourage the most dedicated of keepers, right? Aspiring keepers. But it will certainly make people who just want to cuddle baby pandas, like me, think twice. It's just sad. And what's even sadder is that zookeepers don't get paid a lot. I mean, you would assume that they do because it is a very hard and frankly quite dangerous job. But even though it's hard to get into zookeeping, most zoos won't tell you that despite the competition, zookeepers aren't exactly high earners, right? So they're not in this field for easy money. And I'd like to end with this fact. It's not exactly related to zookeeping, but penguins, I think we can all agree, are one of the cutest birds, animals, or creatures out there, right? And they're absolutely adorable. But they are one of the most smelliest animals out there. Like most zookeepers say that penguins take the prize for the stinkiest animal in the zoo, thanks to that especially pungent shit. And they have a reputation for being devoted and loving, and like stories of them mating for life, right? They can easily capture a visitor's heart. But if those visitors ever get behind the plexiglass for a whiff of these adorable little tuxedo birds or like a hug, they definitely will feel.
Story 3. I was staying in a Hampton Inn in New Jersey when I was visiting Rowan University, a college I potentially wanted to attend. My family couldn't come with me, so I was on my own after attending the campus tours. After that, I went to get a bite to eat at a nearby restaurant and then went back to the hotel at around 8 p.m., planning on going back to my campus the next day. About an hour after returning to my room, a strange alarm started going off in my room, along with the white light flashing from the corner of the ceiling. A message started looping shortly after it, saying something along the lines of, "All Hampton Inn guests, Please remain in your room. This is a lockdown. I've never heard of a lockdown in a hotel. I never even knew hotel had alarms like this. I found it more interesting and exciting than anything else. Eventually, the sound of the alarm stopped, but the light kept flashing. Every 20 seconds or so, the message would repeat. It was only 9:30, so I turned on the TV just as a background noise while I started changing clothes and brushing my teeth. I shut the lights when I was done and hopped under the covers. I watched TV for half an hour before shutting it off. The light was still flashing with an obnoxious bright white. Every few seconds it would just pulsate. It was definitely going to hinder my sleep. I was starting to consider calling the front desk to ask what was going on when the phone rang. It was someone from the front desk. I was expecting them to tell me something about the alarm and when it would shut off. But instead, the person on the other end spoke in a very concerned voice. She told me to stay calm and walk placidly out of the door. I took that opportunity to ask her what exactly was going on. She went on to tell me that there was somebody in the room right next to me and to get out of there immediately. I dropped the phone and instinctively started looking around everywhere. Part of me was curious to see if somebody was in fact with the room. I checked under the bed, looked under the empty bathroom, nobody in either spots. Then I noticed the closet door right next to the bathroom. It was one of those closets with a wooden sliding door. It was open by a tiny crack, and through that tiny crack I could see a person's face. At first it didn't sink in what I was seeing, but when the door slid shut, that's when I freaked out and I ran out of the door. The people at the front desk showed me security footage from an hour earlier of some sketchy looking man walking around the hallways, apparently looking for a certain room. When he got to my door, he opened it with the card he had somehow procured, and that was it. I stayed around as the authorities took him in chains. It was a man, of course, on the shorter side, easily mid-40s. He looked at me as he passed, as if he knew who I was immediately. Scary thinking back that he may have been watching me for more than an hour. I thought that he was going to kill me, but eventually I got out. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for staying tuned with us. This has been my time. I will see you next week with another episode of Crackdown, and I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope you can figure out whether these stories are actually true or not. Stay tuned with Crackdown with RJ Aryan exclusively on VoiceIt, the official radio club of VIT Chennai. Thank you very much.